Well, here we are. It is Friday, December 16th, 2022, and this is the weekly video. We're going to take a look at a number of sales that took place this week. And just so you know, as predicted, the number of items that are available right now on the market have gone way down. Those of you who've been over on the global member pages have noticed that one of the pages doesn't have anything having on it right now because there's literally very little out there for sale. There's just not a lot happening. And I expect it to remain that way for the next couple of weeks. I think around the first, second week of January, we'll start to see a lot of stuff come back. And on that issue to do with the global pages, a couple of you have been encountering this strange error message to do with DPRP. That has something to do with PayPal. PayPal has decided in their wisdom to make a rather drastic change on how they accept money, but they don't have a replacement for it yet. We're working with them. I spent hours with them on the phone today. That's why I'm just getting the video done now. It's 5:30 in the evening. I normally have it get it into editing by noon, but I spent the day because I was trying to get an answer on it. So if you try to subscribe up for the global pages, you can use your credit card easily and just use Stripe. Stripe is a universal credit card processor, and they can sign you up, and it's no problem. But PayPal may or may not work for you right now because the company is frankly very messed up. It's a very fouled up company. I couldn't believe what I was hearing today talking to them, but it's the pains of an old company that hasn't kept up very well, I guess. Any rate, what's going on here? The global pages, just so you know, we mentioned last week we're going to make some changes and clean it up a little bit because there was some the drop-down boxes that we had, I guess, bothered some people. They weren't crazy about them on the page because they move everything too much. So we went to a very simplified box menu system. On the right side is an information box. If you want to look up catalogs, you want to look at the report card for how we rank the auction houses, pictures of fakes and so forth, and results. And then on the other side are all the regular auctions, live auctioneers in the U.S., live auctioneers in Europe, invaluable sale rooms if they have anything that's unusual. We typically only put things on the sale room site if it's not already present on live auctioneers or been found on invaluable. We use it sort of as a place to put things that for auctions that aren't showing up elsewhere. And then Christie's, Sotheby's, and Bonhams, of course. So at any rate, there is stuff on there right now, a number of sales. This sale just got posted today. This is going to take place right after the first of the year. They're sort of getting a jump on it. Some very good Chinese export porcelain. There's quite a bit of stuff, actually. There's more than I thought. But it's still not as much as we normally have. This is just part of one page, and there's numerous pages. So at any rate. Other things, we posted the Bonhams catalog. I might have mentioned it last week, but we posted the Bonhams catalog for the sale that took place in LA this week, and the Arts of Asia sale with the Buddhas on the cover. This catalog, and it was a very good sale. It did very, very well. We got a few of the prices here, and I noticed there were a number of sales lots that didn't sell. They had a bunch of sales in Europe this week. If you follow the live auctioneers and invaluable pages on our site, and if you go back to some of those auctions, you're going to see a lot of unsold lots. There was one sale in Portugal. I think it was nearly a disaster, and they were selling Kangxi, small Kangxi vases for $60 and everything. I don't know what happened, but if you were in on that sale, you cleaned up. And this is why I always say just leave bids because you never know. And that auction they were decimated. It's sad to say. I don't know if they did a bad job advertising it or what, but it wasn't a good result. And but a good result for the buyer. If you're a buyer, you did really well, put it mildly. And then you had this sale. This was the Arts of Asia sale that Christie's ran in Paris this week, and these did phenomenally well. And these are a pretty common, not common, but you've seen them. I've had these bronzes before, and they're very nice on these plinth bases. They're about 19 inches tall. They're beautifully cast, nice gilding on them, in very, very good shape, and all that good stuff. And they were estimated at 200,000 to 300,000 euros, which I thought was a pretty good price because these bronzes individually typically sell in the $60,000 to $100,000 range. in the past. That's what we've seen them sell for. These were estimated at 200 to 300,000, which sort of made sense for three as a rough estimate. They ended up selling for 1.9 million euros. Breathtaking number, breathtaking. And if anybody out there knows why they brought so much, I'd love to hear why. There must be a story behind it, because it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. That, you know, the bases look very, very typical. This is a good photograph, incidentally. If you're interested in early bronzes, that's what the bottom of one of these should look like. All right, and exactly what they should look like. That they're not finished, they're not anything, and it's, the new ones don't look like that. But 1.9 million, I can't get over that number. But I'm sure there's a reason. Somebody probably has a reason. And the other bronze I liked a lot in this sale was this. This was a 19-inch 18th century gilt and patinated bronze with a Xuande mark on the bottom, but it had these peach form cartouche here with a peach tree in relief in gold and bamboo, and beautifully done. Really, really nice with these patina splashes over it, and then these very handsome pair of chimeras flanking the shoulder and the neck, rather, right here. These are awfully nice looking bronze, and this was a big one, 19 inches. Most of these bronzes in this form are 8 to 12 inches. These were very, very big, quite nice. And they were estimated. It was estimated at 20 to 30,000 euros, which was a pretty strong estimate. Ended up going for 18,000 euros, which I think was a really good buy. This was a handsome vase, probably Kangxi to early Qianlong period, somewhere in there, but beautifully done. And of course with the Xuande mark, which is what the mark they used on a lot of late Ming and early Qing bronzes. It was quite nice. And then this was in the sale, one of these iconic yellow enamel and red enamel Jiajing vases. A number of these have been around. If you have any old books on Chinese porcelain, they always have one of these on it. There's a famous one in the British Museum and so forth with the black outlining and the red ground, that beautiful red ground. Nicely potted, very, very desirable type of porcelain. It was estimated at 60 to 100,000 euros and ended up selling for 94,500 euros. And how tall was this? 10 inches tall. These aren't terribly big. I was just curious. But anyway, and it came from a good collection, and it was bought back in the 1950s, apparently, by somebody that was doing business in Asia. Beautiful thing. All right, and then on the other results for the week, there was the Venduis de Natarisen sale. This was a Chinese export and some bronzes and things, and overall it did pretty well. But there was, again, some things that didn't sell. So if you're one of those collectors that doesn't mind at all calling up an auction house post-auction, you might want to check out the results on this page and pick out the things that look good that didn't sell, because they had a number of lots that passed. Some of them I don't know why, because the estimates look pretty reasonable, but I think it's just a lack of participation over there right now. If it's for whatever reason, maybe the economy. If you're in the U.S. and you're in the position of doing some buying, you might want to look at some of these post-sale results over in Europe and make an offer. All right, on some things you can do very well with them. We've done it in the past ourselves. But one of the things that was in the sale that sold was this. This was a wonderful set, and these look like blanc de Chine. These are porcelain, made in Dewa, but they're modeled like blanc de Chine pieces. This the rhinoceros horn shape, and then done with enamels on the inside, and then this relief work over the exterior, and then the matching under trays. These were really nice export pieces, probably early Qianlong period, but very, very finely done, very nice quality, and they look to be in quite good shape. I noticed that all the low relief things, these little flowers and things, are nearly always broken. They think something gets put down on it a little too hard one time. They're putting the cup back on the tray after looking at it, and they put it down too hard and they smack it. And anyway, it was estimated at 1,500 to 2,500 euros. Ended up selling for 1,700 euros for the 4 pieces. I think that was a good buy. I think that was an awfully nice buy, because these enameled interior pieces. I'm trying to think. There was a collection a couple of years ago. One of the big dealers who retired had a couple of these in their collection, and they did really well because they're fairly rare with these enameled interiors around the insides. But I'm trying to think of who it was. Might have been a London dealer. Any rate, these did fine, but I don't think it was anywhere near an overpayment. And then there was this Kangxi Femi-Vert bowl, Wuhai decorated. It was 12 inches in diameter. Rather unusual color scheme on it. Bits of fritting on the rim, as they always have on these. There it is. But the soft palette for this honeycomb pattern at the top I found quite appealing. And the way the flowers are drawn with these lotus leaves coming around it, just really, really nice. And it was heavily decorated on the interior. And it didn't bring the world. It brought a decent price, but it sold for 4,000 euros, which I think is about 4,000 under what it was really worth. In the past few months, we've seen a couple of these big Kangxi bowls come onto the market. They're between 11 and 13 inches or so, 14 inches in diameter. And they all seem to have brought somewhere between 9 and 15,000. I think there was one that we talked about in a video a couple of weeks ago that brought 15 or 16,000. And this time around, this one brought 4,000, which I think was an absolute bargain. I mean, that's the price of a decent 7-inch or 8-inch, blue and white bowl. This was a beautifully enameled example. I thought that was a very nice buy. I thought that was a good item. And then the incense burner. This was in the same sale, and it had a very low estimate, $1,500 to $2,500. I didn't quite understand that estimate because this was a very fine Kangxi example. The dragon was beautifully done. The pot was generously potted. The bottom of it, there's the foot rim, looks absolutely right. And the dragon is beautifully drawn all the way around. There's no wear to it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a little tiny chip out of the rim, which you can get fixed for $150 somewhere with a decent ceramicist. But other than that, it was nothing wrong with it. And maybe the chip made him put the low estimate on it. But anyway, it ended up selling for 6,000 euros. Which is about right. It's getting up into the range that these things bring. If they're not so well decorated, if they're a little bit more clumsily decorated or clumsily decorated, as they sometimes are, they bring 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 maybe. But this was, I think, a particularly fine one, from what I could tell. All right, and this was something that didn't sell. This was something I wanted to point out. They have things like this in the sale that didn't sell. It was a set of gouaches. Beautifully done, 8 gouaches, nicely framed, ready to go. I'm not quite sure. They're on pith. There you are. I don't know what they're processing here. Is it just courtyard scenes? Oh, it's tea. It looks like a tea thing. Okay, let's pull this up a little more. Yeah, it looks like they're planting tea. Nice set of pictures, though, and beautifully framed. And they were estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 euros, which means that they were probably thinking, they probably had an opening bid of somewhere around 1,500 for all 8 of them, which is less than $200 a piece. The frames cost $300 a piece. So if you like pith paintings and you want a set, they're right there. Call them up, offer them $1,500 for them. You might get them. All right, and then over here to this sale. This was the Placas sale in London. Took place on the 13th. There were some interesting things there. They had some pretty good prices, but they also had some real bargains. I think this was one of the bargains of the day. A really nicely enameled Femi-Vert Kangxi incense burner. They didn't date it, and I don't know why. Sure looks Kangxi to me from what I'm seeing. The work is nice. The brown dressing, the texture of this internal glaze to the center of it. Here's a picture of the base. Looks absolutely fine. There it is, unglazed bottom, but that foot and the colors up here all looks Kangxi to me. And it went for just $850, and I didn't see anything wrong with it. I don't know why. And they just dated it as Qing Dynasty. Seems kind of lazy. I don't know why, because that was a good piece of porcelain. I suspect the person that got it knew exactly what it was. And then they had this in the sale. This was very, very nice. We talked about it last week, I remember, was this transitional to Shunzi period plate, very, very much in the flavor of the things that we saw in the Butler collection just a couple of weeks ago. And it was a very nicely done plate. The photographs were overlit. Unfortunately, this auction house uses I don't think they proof their photographs too carefully, because this is a little bit washed out looking in the colors, so the colors look a bit stark, and I don't think in person it would look this way at all. And it was estimated at 1,000 to 1,500 euros, which was very, very low. Ended up selling for 2,800 euros, which was not too high. A plate like this could have easily brought 4,000 or 5,000 euros. So I think that was a nice looking thing. All right, and then this was another little bargain of the day. Chongzhen period jug, transitional period thing. Very recognizable for the people that collect in this period. Nicely decorated, had a chip out of the top there. But ewers in this form are very rare. They're in this type are quite rare. And I thought this was a nice one from what I could see. It was about 8 or 9 inches tall. Everything looked okay on it other than the chip. And that chip is in a white area with maybe a little blue underneath. Easy fix. And it was estimated at only 400 to 600 euros, which I didn't understand. And it ended up selling for 900 euros, which I don't understand, because I thought when I saw this before, it should bring 1,800 to 2,500, somewhere in there at least. And it didn't. So again, somebody got a very good buy, and I hope it was one of you. Leave bids when you see these low estimates, especially when you see these very low estimates, because estimates for people that haven't been collecting for very long don't realize that they're not actually guides a lot of the time on what the value is. And if you've been collecting for any length of time, you've seen lots of items estimated. Well, there was the famous pig jade that was from the Irving collection a couple of years ago that was estimated at 5,000 to 7,000 and sold for over 2 million. And I think that was just they misidentified. I think they made a little mistake there. But a lot of the times the auction houses put very low estimates on there to encourage participation, but they know the piece is better than that. But sometimes when other bidders see a low estimate, they'll say, well, they're saying it's only worth $400 or $500, so that's all I'm going to bid. And it helps soften it a little bit if the estimates are a little bit crazily low. On more sophisticated things, it doesn't work quite so well. But on the more common, and I consider these to be things that we see fairly regularly. They're not common, but they're not they're not hardly ever seen. These transitional pieces are around. I think that if they go too low on the estimate, I think it might hurt participation when the prices start to rise. All right, and then this was one of my favorite things in the auction. I thought this was spectacular. 18th century coral red or almost fire engine red with gilding teapot. This was a wonderful teapot. Had a crack in the handle, it looks like, and all that, but it had this beautiful red enamel over it, almost like the Kanrandi red you saw in Ming pieces, but brighter, with underglazed blue roux heads at top and bottom, and this very nice simple lid with a finial on it. And a nice little short spout, but what an interesting teapot. Very interesting. And there's the bottom of it, exactly what it should look like. There's the base, very typical of 18th century wares. And they dated it as Qianlong. What was the history behind this thing? Did they give it? Auction overview, auction details. No, nothing. No history any more than that. Oh well, it's a wonderful thing, and it could have even been a little bit older than Qianlong. Looking at that bottom, could have been a little older than that. It could be even late Kangxi. I know it sounds crazy, but it might have been. But at any rate, it was estimated at only 200 to 300 euros, and it went for just 320 euros. This was, I think, one of the great buys, because if you're looking at it saying, I've never seen that color before, I've only seen it once or twice. I've seen it on wine cups, but I can't remember seeing a ribbed teapot from the 18th century that looks like this. I really can't. It's just a wonderful piece of porcelain, and rare, very rare. So somebody got a wonderful object out of that. And then over here, this was the stair auction. This was the small stair sale that took place this week. They didn't have a lot of Chinese art, but they had quite a bit of it. And somebody, we talked about this lot on the Global Members video last week. I pointed it out and said it's the kind of lot that could go under the wire, could go under the money, and it did. And somebody got an amazing buy, $350 for all of it. These teapots, for example, typically sell for about what the lot went for. And you still have a bunch of saucers stacked up under here, 5 or so saucers, 6 saucers, matching cups, a waste bowl, and a sugar bowl. You have everything but the creamer, but I think this was a really good buy. Very, very good buy. These were finely worked, beautiful, and they looked like they were in overall good condition. So if you're a dealer and you bought that, you're gonna do well with it by just breaking it up and selling off, pairs of cups and saucers, pairs, plates, and however you want to do it. But this was a nice lot. I thought the estimate was perfectly reasonable, and it went for well under that. I thought the estimate was even maybe a little bit low. Any rate, and then there was this. This was a very nice Kangxi sweetmeat set that belonged to Peter Durand, who was Khalil Risk's partner at the Chinese Porcelain Company in New York City. This was something that was in his personal collection. It's a beautiful set with a shaped under tray that all these dishes fit into it. A couple of the pieces had small repairs and so forth, but it was these Kangxi examples. They would sometimes this was put together to hold a fitted lower tray to hold the pieces in place so they don't bang against each other too much while it's being moved around. But a very nice looking set of dishes. And like I said, this one had a repair to it. One had a repair, one had a chip out of the corner, and I think that was about it. It still had the Chinese Porcelain Company label on it, but a very nice looking set. And there's the box and so forth. At any rate, my dog's growling. Went for just $2,000, which I think was very, very reasonable, because we've seen these dishes before. You see them in auctions. Sometimes you'll just see 2 of these, and they'll bring $400. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. $5,000. And somebody picked the lot up for $2,000. That's the way to buy them. And good provenance. Chinese Porcelain Company doesn't get any better than them. And then over to this, the black teapot, the miniature black teapot. This also came from Mr. Durand, I believe, right? Pierre Durand, there it is, Chinese Porcelain Company. Very rare little teapot. I pointed this out last week to the global users. This is a really rare bird, a black glazed with famille rose teapot, and it's a very small one, very tiny little pot, but beautifully done and rare. And it had a little repair to the handle. It was estimated at just $100 to $200, and it went for $400, which I think is still reasonable. If you're a teapot buyer, rare teapots, I would have thought this was more worth in the $800 to $1,200 range. All right, but we're in that Christmas period. This is what happens. Look at this. This was this was misidentified. This was Medusa had this in the Netherlands. This is a 1680s Japanese Arita kendi, based on the modeled obviously after the Wan Li kendis that you see fairly often. But this was a Japanese example. Now, it may have had a repair here at the top. That's the only thing I can think of why it brought so little money. But it was a nice early piece of Arita ware, and that looks like a repair, but I'm not positive of that. And it was estimated at $200 to $300, and ended up selling for 200 to 300 pounds. Ended up selling for 160 pounds. But if you're an early Arita collector, that's still a nice thing, and they're not that common. The Chinese examples are much more common. And then over here to this I pointed out to some of the global users a week ago, because it just struck me as such a wonderful thing. And it's probably Sichuan ware, but this beautiful water buffalo with the boy glazed on top in turquoise, riding the water buffalo. It's a very common story in Chinese culture. It's got this very nicely patinated old stand under it. The color of the wood was fabulous, and the surface of this water buffalo is great. And then the details of the boy with the little pigtails in his hair, just adorable thing. And there's the top of it. All right, beautifully done. Now it may have had at one point it may have had a cover for this, but I'm not so sure it did. It doesn't look like it did. I don't see any areas where it would have fitted on there. It's sort of an interesting aspect to it. But it could be used as an incense burner, obviously. And it was estimated at only 150 euros, and somebody picked it up on it looked like a starting bid, where they got one bid of 150 euros for this. And this was a good sized thing, too. It wasn't really, really small. It was about 9 inches long. So it was a decent sized object. And it'd be handsome, but had a beautiful, beautiful tonality to it. I just thought it was, for $150, I think it was just a great thing, a really, really attractive object. A lot of bang for the buck. And let's see what else was going on. Oh, over on eBay. Here we go. Somebody mentioned last week I don't talk about eBay as much. I noticed it in the comments. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that there's so much less stuff on there. There's some things on there this week, but there's so much less stuff on eBay today than there was 6 or 7 years ago, because a lot of the sellers that used to sell on the site regularly, all kinds of really good 18th century, 17th century things, they either sell fixed price now on eBay because they get tired of the non-payers out of the mainland, or they've gone to selling on other platforms because of eBay's management style. We'll put it that way. But so there's less stuff on there. There's more items, but less things that are authentic. We'll put it that way. The authentic scale has gone down on eBay, unfortunately. I think there's 1 million items right now currently listed on the site under Asian Antiques. And, at the end of the week when we go looking, we quickly filter all of that down from the auction side down to about 110 items. It doesn't take, we have a way of doing it. It doesn't take long. And we tend to find a lot of the stuff that is decent on there. But that shows you how much nonsense is on that site right now. And eBay doesn't care, frankly. They even said so to me. They have no care. They don't care at all about antiques. And there was talk of them getting rid of antiques on the site a couple of years ago, and they had enough pushback that they didn't do it. But they'd rather sell, Nike sneakers and used tennis rackets, I guess, or something. I don't know what. At any rate, there was this vase. This was a pretty vase. It had a very white enamel ground to it, a white enamel finish instead of just a white glaze. It looked like it's on white enamel. It was very nicely done. The glaze was extremely contrasted. And it had this big phoenix in the middle of it. It's a late 19th century vase, second half of the 19th century, late Qing. But nicely done, strong colors, very strong colors. There's the top of it, but it was good size. This was a pretty big vase. I think it was 20 inches or 24 inches, 61 centimeters tall. So it was 25 inches in height, roughly 24 and a half inches tall. No damage, no hairlines or cracks. One of the handles has a natural kiln gap in it in the glaze, I guess, but that's about it. And it ended up selling for $2,000, which is about right. These, we've seen them many times. They sell somewhere usually in this size, 24 inches, not 18, but 24 inches, a big difference. Typically in the $1,800 to $2,800 range, depending on the decoration. So that was a nice thing. It was a good looking vase. All right, and then there was this. This was a small thing. It was a simple thing, but it was a nice piece of Japanese amari. It was set up as an inkwell with sort of door bronze on it there, and the little inserts. This is a Meiji period example, but a pretty charming thing. It almost looks like one of Aladdin's lanterns, that sort of layout. But nice colors, very simple, pretty elegant. Look good on a French table in a living room or something, or on a desk. And it went for just $73, 73 bucks. So if you looked at it and you said, "Oh, that's going to bring $300 or $400, I don't think I want to spend that on it," it didn't. It went for $73. It had only 2 bids, so that makes it one of those bargains of the week. And then there was this very nice Benkrong tatsas, these footed compotes here, like this. There it is. But what's interesting about this was it had a gilded ground, and you don't see them with gilded grounds very often. blow it up a little bit. There it is. It had a gold ground with enamels over it, which I think made it pretty striking looking. Very much in the taste of southern, South Asian Asian markets. Cheerful, bright, nice gold on it. Beautifully potted, nicely shaped foot rim on it. Nice decoration underneath where nobody really looks that much, but they did the bottom as well as they did the top. And I think it was a perfectly good price. It went for $855 because it was a very unusual color palette. All right, and this was Glenmore Antiques over in the UK had it. They get good things anyway. They have a good eye. They buy nice things. And then there was this. This was another little bargain. Now this was they call them bleeding bowls or porringers. It was an 18th century one. It went for $45 because it had a crack in it. All right, but I only point this out because it's a nice example with or without the crack. And without the crack, it probably would have brought $250 to $350. But it had that crack right here, and it went around a little bit on the bottom. It looks like there's an old hairline there. But if you're shopping on a modest budget, this is the kind of thing you want to buy because it's good looking, it's authentic. The hairline in it's not that unusual. I always say if you go to some museums and look at their porcelain collection, the Met, the British Museum, the Guimet in Paris, the MFA in Boston, the Peabody Essex Museum, and you look carefully at the stuff in those cases, and they look really great. When you get up close to them and look around, you look in the back a little, you'll find staple repairs, all kinds of damage, all kinds of repairs, because they take a more scholarly approach when they buy things, and they want fine examples regardless of condition sometimes, because it's the right thing. And this is a nice thing. This is a very nice thing. It's a sort of a not terribly rare, but it is an unusual form. And it was nicely decorated, and it's either Young Chen or early Qianlong period. So it's very, very attractive. And then there was this. This was a simple bowl. It had a Kangxi mark on the bottom. It's an iron red with gilt decorated dragon bowl with roux heads around the top of it. It had a Kangxi mark in iron and underglazed red or overglazed red there. Obviously, it's not Kangxi. Because they didn't decorate them, they didn't mark them like this, and the work isn't quite that good. But it's a nice example. And it was, I'm trying to think how big this was. It wasn't terribly big. It was like 5 inches, 4.5, 5 inches in diameter. But it was in good shape, had a nice profile to it, nice colors, and it went for $441. And that's right about what they're worth. That's my dog Skipper, begging for his dinner. All right, and now over to the late Ming Dynasty Wucai square dish. This one had some damage to it, but I liked it last week. I remember commenting on this. I just thought it was so nice. The colors were very, very energetic, bright, sort of festive looking, very Christmassy. With these quails perched on the branches. And all the multicolored feathers and the nice underglazed blue. Good looking thing. Here's the picture of the back of it. It's got some old repair there. There might have been a nibble out of some other corner. It had a hairline in the bottom and all that. But it was still, as an object, it was a nice example. And it ended up selling for $1,038. I'm sorry about this. $1,038. He's very excited. And Bamboon had this over in the UK. Nice looking dish and very colorful, very bright. And if you think about it, okay, it's damaged, but if you're a collector and you see something that is painted, this is just like a little painting. It's beautifully done, like a true painting, and interesting colors and old. It was made probably around 1550 to 1600, somewhere in there. And then the Lang Yao Mei Ping vase that we talked about last week. We looked at it together. I remember looking at this. It had a nice glaze. It wasn't too big, fitted right in the hand of the person there, but it had very good color. The red on this was very, very nice. And we thought it would bring $1,000 to $1,500, and there it is, $1,256. And it's just because that's what they always seem to bring when they're early 19th century examples like this, with this quality, that nice white lip on the top, but very nice glaze, particularly fine, strong color, and it brought a good price, but not a crazy price. All right, December's a good month to buy. And then the Yongshen cup and saucer set. We talked about this because we've had this same pattern before. They're fairly rare and quite nice, and they typically do pretty well. I love the yellow citron, the Buddha fingers there, the citron fingers in here. Nice yellow, beautiful color. And this very nice sort of almost grayish green, bluish green that they used around the border, and then the honeycomb pattern. It was beautifully done, and ended up selling for $448 for the bowl and the saucer, which is right about in there. Sometimes they bring more. Sometimes they bring 500 or 600 too. So this was not the highest price. It wasn't the lowest. I've seen them sell. It was years ago, so it doesn't matter. I always think back to what things brought years ago, and I said, well, it's irrelevant. Because back in the 80s, a cup and saucer set like this would have been worth about $75. All right, and then over to that nice little blue and white 18th century pot. I talked about this because I just thought it was a really dandy little example and fairly rare. You don't generally think of these blue and white pieces from the 18th and early 19th centuries being particularly rare or unusual because they produced so much of this material with this pattern. But this shape struck me as being very unusual, and there was a little bit of molded relief decoration into it with this very nice brown dressed edge on the top. And apparently the collectors out there liked it a lot. They paid $708 for this, and this was pretty small. It was 6 centimeters tall, so it was about about 2.5 inches tall, about the size of a cup. But it went for $708 because of not because of the pattern, but because of the form and shape. Unusual, very unusual. It's the kind of thing that collectors really like to get, is unusual forms and shapes, and that's what that is. And then you had this was from the ceramics and collectible guys, the Shangri-La guys. Had this wonderful plate up. We talked about it last week. I liked it a lot. And apparently other people did too, because it sold for $1,241. And these aren't terribly big, but they're iconic, and the pine trees were nicely done, and this plate was in beautiful condition. There are lots of these porcelains around that are in not so perfect condition, and they don't typically bring much. But the ones that are in good shape do very well, and this one did fine. But the cloud border around the edge was nicely done, and I love the negative space. They had it tipped a little bit in the photo. I think it should have been rotated a few degrees to counterclockwise there to level it up a little, but maybe not. Maybe that's a hillside. And $1,241, had 51 bids. That's some activity. All right, and then over here, this is going to be in this week's newsletter page. Is this set of paintings? These are late Qing, possibly early Republic period, but very interesting paintings of people in demon costumes and so forth. There's a whole bunch of them here. There they are. These are really colorful. They're beautifully done. They're all matted up and ready to go, all ready to hang. And the frames are nicely done. They have these nice sort of almost olive green frames with the mats around them, nicely presented. They're up to $1,356. There are 9 of them. I would expect the lot to bring between $1,800 and $2,400, somewhere in there, at least. All right, but they're very nice, and they got to be worth $200 or $300 a piece. They're on silk, and they look to be in very, very good condition, which is important, because you buy 9 paintings and 2 of them are knocked up and a mess. It's not a lot of fun trying to figure out what to do with them. And this is going to be on there this week. This is a nice cloisonne bowl. It's a 19th century bowl, but it's a heavy one. Some of the later cloisonne is kind of flimsy and thin. This is a nice looking example. It's got some real age to it. Probably second half of the 19th century, but nicely potted, nicely formed. I don't see any damage to it. The cloisonne work is good. You don't have any bleeding colors. I don't see any cracks anywhere. Overall, it looks really nice. I like the dragon's face. He looks like he's excited about something. And it's only up to $24. It closes on Tuesday. How big is this thing? 9 inches? Yeah, 9 inches wide. I seem to remember that. I don't know why. But anyway, 9.5 inches wide. And what is it worth? Does it come with that stand? That's a nice stand. The display stand is not for sale. Oh, for heaven's sakes. I hate it when they do that. Because that's a good stand. But that's a $200 or $300, $400 stand. But at any rate, the bowl is still pretty great. I like the bowl. And what's it worth? Probably $500 to $700, somewhere in there, I would think, by the time it's all over. If it goes for under that, it was just a bargain. All right, and then the little painting, nice old ink painting. This is a very subtle little painting. And has it gotten much attention? It's up to $102, got 5 days to go. Okay, so it's on a few people's radar. But this is a very delicately painted image of a woman in a landscape setting. I love it when they draw the trees like this, like little sticks. And it's on this really bad background. The mat that it's on, I would, if I had this, I would, yeah, it's bad. I would look into taking it to a framer and having it cut, saving as much of the fabric as you can. But there's really no good way to display this, and it really should be framed under glass and protected. So I would have a framer cut this off here, cut this off up here, put a really nice mat on it, pick up appropriate frame, and I think this would be a handsome thing. And there's the lady's face, very delicately painted, very subtle, very sort of in the Literati school. The waterfall in the background, very faint, just a hint of it. It's very elegant with some script over on the side and sealed by the artist. It's up to $102. Should bring $800 to $1,200, I would think, maybe more. But very nice example. Let's see, they're calling it very old Qing or earlier. It's old, but I don't think it's earlier than Qing. I think it's probably 18th, early 19th century or something. But it's a beautiful painting. Buy it for the art. Always buy things for the art, not for the age. You can buy Ming porcelain. Many of you know you can buy Ming porcelain all day long for, under $200. It's just not great quality. It's not spectacular. And it's the same with paintings. Buy the painting because it's beautiful, and then think about a nice way to frame it and put it in your life and enjoy it. All right, it's got a few little fading, commensurate with age, all that stuff. Oh, this is a state consigner out in over in Florida, Winter Park, out there. They get some nice things. I think people bring them things to sell. We've had them many times on here, but this is a nice painting. I like that. All right, and that and some other things will be on the global pages. On the eBay newsletter page this week. We've got I think there's about 75 things we're going to put on there. So go over and check them out. And if you're looking around the global member pages, check out the live. Let me see, the Invaluable page. We added 2 good sales there. We're over in Europe. And check out page 1 on the USA live auctioneers page, because we added a pretty big auction that's coming up in January down there of good export wares. So check that out. And everybody, we'll be back next week. We're going up country tomorrow, up to New Hampshire. So we'll maybe do a video from up there, and then we'll be back for Christmas, and we'll get next week's video out and so forth. But going to be spending some time with my children and grandchildren. I hope you are, and with my dogs and my lovely wife. And there we are. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, and see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.